Works for me.
Good.
Hello, ladies. It's Carol Lourie, and I'm here with my dear friend and colleagues, the incredible Susun Weed. And you can see, I wish I was there. She's up in the Catskills. It's so gorgeous. And Susun is graciously coming back for a third interview, I think, because we all love her so much. No, it's her second year. I was in her program. Everyone loves her so much that every time I do a series like this, I get emails, can we get Susun back again? So she's graciously agreed to come here, and she's sitting outside in her beautiful property in the Catskills. And being from the East Coast, you can tell I wish I was there. So I thought today we would talk about two topics. One, stress, because what's happening in the world right now is so stressful. Roe versus Wade was just overturned. And the thought that a woman's body is now up for discussion, whether you're pro or anti-abortion is not the topic, in my opinion. It's about, does anyone have control over what we do with our bodies other than us? How is it men's business? That's number one. And number two, we're going to talk about when you finished chemotherapy, radiation, there is this approach out there of quote unquote detoxifying. And Susun has a lot of wisdom and experience to share with us in that area. So welcome, Susun. So grateful you're here.
Thank you, Carol. I am so grateful that you are here and working so hard for every woman on this planet. We are blessed by your presence. Thank you.
Well, that's how I feel about you. So we have a mutual admiration society.
Yeah. Two women who are not afraid to say the word woman.
Right.
My granddaughter was the presence at the Pride booth at her local high school.
Oh, great.
And so I got to see all of the Pride flags, which I hadn't seen before. And I had a fit because the definition of lesbian was a non-man who loves other non-men.
Yeah, there's a whole non-gender transition that's happened now.
The definition of lesbian has to start with the word woman.
Okay,
if you want to say woman and non-man, you can. Yeah. But it's got to start with the word woman. We can't, because if we give up the word woman, then we get Roe versus Wade overturned. And I've been actually talking about this for over 30 years. I've been telling women that they're giving up their reproductive rights. I've been telling them this almost every day for 30 years. And basically nobody has believed me until now they can see exactly what has
consequences are long-term. We have to always think about our actions from the future. Like
it's called sex-based rights.
Right.
Abortion and the right to reproductive care is a sex-based right. Women need this. So this is why I speak about women. I'm very open. I have actually been working with trans people for over 35 years, but I have never before, about 10 years ago, been threatened by trans people for the work that I do.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because I'm not a trans person. I no longer am allowed to be a helper.
Oh, really? They're that exclusionary? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was at a big conference. I was going to a workshop on fruits and berries of North America, taught by a Native American woman. I got there, it didn't look like a Native American woman. There were only about 4 people in the room. And they said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Fruits and berries." They said, "Not here." She couldn't come. "We're doing herbs for trans folk." And I said, "Great. Really interested." And I sat down and they said, "Are you trans?" And I said, "No." They said, "Get out."
Oh.
So, it's like, wow. You want me to accept you? I need you to accept me.
I don't think everyone is like that, Susun.
I'm not saying everyone is, but I'm saying that the trans agenda is very violent. And I'm not saying any person is, but I'm saying the agenda is. And I have experienced this directly as well as indirectly with a lot of people that I work with and am friends with and so on. So if you're interested in what's going on, I think a great person to listen to is Artie Morty. ARTYMORTR. Artie Morty. Go to YouTube and look up Artie Morty. And he is really sweet, sweet-faced, laughing gay man who'll tell you exactly why what's happening isn't healthy for anybody.
Well, division, good, bad, right, wrong, black and white, is a sign that either you as an individual or society is in a complex. And when you're in a complex, you've lost connection to your essential soul and your vital force and your essential self. So when an organization is acting out from good, bad, right, wrong, you can belong, you don't belong, you're in, you're out. It's a sign that there is a big energy disturbance and a loss of the essential self.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
Well, so it's so important, you know. I think that we are experiencing a lot of grief, fear, grief, and under that there's anger.
And stress. We're talking about stress today.
Well, it's those, if we can't express those emotions, then we feel a huge amount of stress. So we've already talked about nourishing herbal infusions, which actually do help stress proof you. They don't make you immune to stress, but they make you a lot more resilient to the stress. And then there's a wonderful plant that's in bloom right now all around us called Leonoris cardiaca. Leo, of course, is the lion, and cardiac is the heart. So this is the lion-hearted plant, Leonoris cardiaca, and a tincture in vodka, 100 proof vodka, made from the fresh flowering pop of the plant, is so fantastic at reducing anxiety almost immediately.
What's the name of this plant?
Had apprentices who
Wait,
say,
what's the name of the plant?
within seconds. I'm walking through the house now, going away from where I am, so that we can go here and we can see what I'm.
It's lion's mane, Leonidas. No, we lost Susan.
Heart,
There
also
she is.
called motherwort. Can you see it?
Yes.
I'm sitting in a big patch of motherwort, and it's flowering right now. Right at this very moment, there's the beautiful flowers.
You can feel
And
the
it's
energy.
this part right here that you want to tincture, the very top of the plant. And this tincture is, as far as I can tell, one of the very best simple remedies for relieving anxiety and helping you deal with the stress that, well, my mentor Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, seek out stress. Stress is the way that bridges stay up, and stress is the way that you get a big building. So she trained us to like stress and to seek stress, but to be able to be resilient in the face of that stress. And motherwort is such a wonderful, wonderful ally in that. So look around you. You know, it's a plant of the cities as well as the country. I didn't plant that. It's a weed.
Oh.
It's growing in your garden. It's growing.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I just stepped in a hole.
Oh my goodness.
It's okay. That's what happens when I'm looking here and not where I'm walking. I said the goats got away from my apprentice the other day, and I ran after them so hard that I tripped over my own feet, fell down, and rolled 3 times. But I kept them out of my herb garden.
I would be chasing them out of my garden too, because they could eat that for a snack, and then you're just left with devastation.
Exactly. It's true. They are very, very munchy. So look for motherwort, in whether you're living in a city or the country, and it grows pretty much all over the North America, all the way up into Canada. Once you get down, into the real South, it's not so happy anymore. I don't find it reliably in, say, for instance, Florida. Right, but
no, it's more a northeastern plant than a southern plant.
And a southern plant, exactly. Although it grows well west, and many people find that with just a little bit of help, they can get it established in gardens all the way out to the west. Sometimes they have to plant the seeds to start, but then because it's a weed, it's happy to just stay around.
It takes over.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the three traditions of healing. The scientific tradition, which measures and fixes, the heroic tradition, which cleanses and balances, and the wise woman tradition, which nourishes wholeness. Now, we're all really familiar with measuring and fixing. This seems to be like the kind of right way to do it. The difficulty is that I have yet to find anybody who defines health as fixity.
No.
In fact, health is flexibility, not fixity. Just to take a mundane example, you go to the doctor measures your blood pressure. The doctor says, oh, you have pre-hypertension. We're going to put you on some drugs.
That's
And
unfortunate.
those drugs fix the blood pressure, and they literally fix it. So now the blood pressure can't fluctuate anymore. And this lack of fluctuation has a cascade effect so that your blood pressure may be lowered. We got that fixed. But the effects that it's having on the other parts of your body are not healthy, especially the organs of elimination like the liver and so on. So many people understanding this seek out something different, like an osteopath or a naturopath, or somebody who's involved in alternative medicine, maybe an acupuncturist or a chiropractor. And many of them have been trained in the heroic tradition. So the goal is to cleanse and to balance. And balance is the state that immediately precedes death. We want to avoid balance whenever we can. Think about it for a moment. You know, so far as we know, it all started with a big bang. Whoa. And that big bang made hydrogen. And the entire continuity of space-time was filled with hydrogen atoms. And we'd still be there. Just a big space-time of hydrogen atoms if there hadn't been a permutation. That permutation started, boing, a spiral going. That spiral gathered the hydrogen together into a star, into a nuclear reactor. And the hydrogen reacted and actually created new atoms. It then lived out its life as a star, became a nova, exploded all of that out into the universe to cause further permutations, which caused more stars, which exploded, which caused more, which eventually we got to dust clouds, which then were able to coalesce into planets like our planet that we live on. Without the permutation, no life. Balance is the enemy of life.
Wow.
We want
radical.
Dynamic disequilibrium. Dynamic disequilibrium is what causes us to breathe, isn't it? If you breathe out completely, you will inhale because there's a dynamic disequilibrium and your body wants to dance with that. You know, I'm sure that you have found, and that as I continue to live, I find that health is more and more about complexity and about honoring the unique and individual complexity of each person. And so we simply cannot have that if we are seeking balance. Now, cleanliness is a little more difficult to talk about because many of us were brought up with the idea that cleanliness is next to godliness and we should be clean people. It's one of the few words I consider a dirty word, and I don't let the apprentices ever say the word clean. Suppose that you came to visit me and I said, Carol, let's go out in the woods and clean up the woods. There's some fallen leaves and there's some fallen trees and there's some fallen sticks out there. And we're going to clean it up and sweep the forest floor. What would you say?
I'd say that's absurd because the ecosystem needs all of the beauty of the decomposing dirt and the leaves and the wood to nourish the soil and continue the cycle of life. You're not
Exactly. We live in a closed system. The earth is a closed system. There cannot be anything toxic in a closed system. If there's anything toxic in the closed system is destroyed. So we know by the fact that we live in a closed system that nothing is toxic. In fact, there's only one rule, and that is I eat you and you eat me. So we have to find out what eats, what we don't want. If there's something we don't want, then what will eat that. Let me give you my favorite example. When I was in Alaska, and this was quite a while ago, and it was fairly soon after the Exxon Valdez made that big oil spill, and I wanted to go see it. And they said, "Well, it's a long trip, and you're going to wind up having to be in a kayak in the ocean." Yeah, I love ocean
Sounds great
kayak,
to me, really.
right? So, I took the train and the bus and the car, and they got in the kayak, and we got to the bay where the oil spill had been. And you remember they cleaned up there. You saw the pictures. They washed the animals, and there were still people there. And I asked them, I said, "So those animals that you washed, that you cleaned up, how long did they live?" And they said, 2 or 3 days.
Oh,
Because those animals live in very cold water that can be close to freezing, and they have a oil on their skin that protects them against the cold. And so when they wash them with soap and water, it washes that
they
away,
washed them with the lipophilic water, and it removed their
and
natural
it
oils.
removed their natural oil, and so they died.
So it destroyed their ecosystem.
Destroyed their ecosystem by
That's
cleaning them.
sad.
Similarly, they cleaned the beaches again with surfactants and so on. And those beaches, when I was there, were sterile. There was nothing growing there. Now, when you look at a map and you see a bay, it kind of looks like a curve. But when you're in a kayak, it looks, whoa, there's all this fractalization to it. So what we did was we got back in the kayaks and we went into a cove in that very bay. It was a big bay, and there was a little cove in that bay where people had done something different. They said crude oil. Crude oil is a natural product. There must be something that eats it. And they looked in ocean water. As a matter of fact, about twice the amount that the Exxon Valdez spilled bubbles up from the ocean floor every 24 hours in terms of crude oil. Crude oil is always bubbling up through the ocean floor. And so the ocean, we would think, would look like a parking lot if that was happening. But there's an organism in ocean water that eats that crude oil. They were able to identify it. They were able to magnify it, in other words, to get it to grow very, very fast. And they dumped it into the water in this cove. All the animals survived. The cove was a thriving ecosystem because instead of cleaning, they nourished. This is what we want to do with our bodies. We want to recognize that our bodies are ecosystems, not just the microbiome, but every part of our body is an ecosystem. And whenever we clean, we damage and destroy ecosystems. There's no way to clean without damaging and destroying. So we never want to clean. Now, our bodies are actually superbly designed to get rid of anything that doesn't do them good. I'm sure almost all of you have eaten asparagus, and there is a chemical. It's not a chemical that's put on it. It's a naturally occurring chemical. It's a phytochemical in asparagus that's not good for your body. It's called asparagine, and actually can harm your kidneys. Most people can smell that chemical.
Right.
How long does it take that chemical to get out of your body?
Well, I mean, as soon as you eat asparagus, the next time you pee, it's there.
The next time you pee,
maybe a few hours,
maybe
depending on how much water you drink. But it's interesting that asparagus.
This is how well the body removes all chemicals it doesn't need.
But this is how it's interesting how asparagus comes to us within the ecosystem of natural ecosystem and not being transported from Colombia. It comes up, it grows up in Woodstock where you are in the spring, and also here in California. Yeah. So it's a spring vegetable that appears to, I think, help give us very specific phytonutrients that we need because we're recovering from the winter. And I think it helps clean out the kidneys if you have healthy kidneys.
Well, I'm so glad that it doesn't clean out the kidneys, because if it cleaned out the kidneys, it would damage and destroy them.
Right.
What it does is it strengthens the kidneys, right? And that's what we always want. We want to strengthen and to tonify. We want to nourish and to feed. We never want to cleanse, because cleansing will always hurt us. There's simply no way around it. Did you see the book by the MD who decided not to bathe for a year?
No. I wouldn't want to be living with him.
His wife says he does not smell at all. As a matter of fact, he smells much better since he stopped bathing. When you bathe, you destroy the microbiome of your skin. and then bacteria that cause smells start to grow. When you don't bathe, that doesn't happen, and you actually smell far better. Anytime you clean and cleanse, you're going to damage and destroy. Sometimes you can make up for it, sometimes you can't. But if, for instance, you said, let's talk about the person who's had chemotherapy. And most people go into chemotherapy with the hope that the chemotherapy will kill their cancer. But at the same time, they have a very strong idea that the chemotherapy is going to be very bad for them. So the first thing that I suggest for people is that they free themselves of this idea that the chemotherapy is bad for you.
Right.
Just right there, let's just stop that thought for them and say, this chemotherapy is going to kill my cancer and it's going to be good for me, and my body can handle it. And whatever my body doesn't need, it will remove. Now, when I was in the hospital, I was in such distress. I had 7 suitcases of herbs to help myself.
I love that.
Carol, I didn't have the energy to ask for my suitcase to be opened.
Oh, somebody should have been there to take care of you.
May 2020.
Oh, that says that. That answers that question,
That
right?
answers that question. There was not. They weren't. Even the nurses who came in my room were only allowed in one at a time. It was a horrible time to be in the hospital. So they gave me horrible drugs, for drugs I never would have chosen to take. What did I do? I didn't try to cleanse myself of those drugs because I know my body's taking care of it. How can I support my body
Support your liver to
support my liver? So I took dandelion. It just so happened, because of course this is the way life works, that I had gone out with an apprentice to our CSA farm where they have a pick your own garden. And I said, can I pick dandelions? They said, please be our guest. And we actually made 2 quarts of dandelion root tincture the fall before the spring when I was in the hospital. So I had 2 quarts of dandelion root tincture, and I took a dropper full of dandelion root tincture every morning for 2 years. It's now been 25 months, so I'm not taking dandelion anymore. 2 years, I think, is a good amount of support for my liver. And of course, I always do support my liver in a great many ways. But I did that 2 years of daily dandelion to make sure that everything was going well. And of course, dandelion is also a tremendous aid to the kidneys. So any of my organs of elimination, kidneys, liver, and skin being the primary organs of elimination, are going to be helped, nourished, and tonified by use of dandelion, which is the world's most generous plant.
I mean, it's everywhere, and people think of it as a weed, but
it is a weed.
When I see dandelion, first of all, you have to make sure it's growing in your property or somebody's property, that they're not using toxic Roundup or some horrible chemicals.
If they're using Roundup, there's no dandelion. You can be sure if there's dandelion, they haven't used an herbicide. I actually do frequently prefer to pick rooted plants from the side of the road because they will be more stressed and thus they will be more medicinal.
That's interesting. That makes a lot of sense, right?
Right.
But you're saying the word rooted, so you're using the root.
That's below the ground.
You're not using the top part, which is.
I was using dandelion root. That was the part that I tinctured. But dandelion is so generous that any part of dandelion harvested any time of the year and prepared in any way will make a great remedy that will support and strengthen your liver, your kidneys, your stomach. Oh, dandelion goes on and on. Oh, and did I mention that we have really good studies showing that dandelion is anti-cancer, so it prevents recurrence too?
Okay, well, it's now on the list.
Now on the list, such an easy herb, and everybody recognizes dandelion. So any way you want to use dandelion, hey, dandelion wine is a great thing. My liver doesn't like alcohol. I know that about myself. So I'm not going to choose dandelion wine. Little bit of vodka in that tincture, a dropper full, is 1/40th of an ounce. My liver can handle that the same way it can
absolutely
handle 1 glass of champagne a year.
Good.
Good.
And it better be from a good bottle too.
A good bottle. Well, hey, if I'm only having 1 glass, pour up the good stuff for me as well.
Right, you deserve it.
Yeah. So we don't need to do anything to cleanse. Now, I talked to one of my native grandmothers, adopted by some grandmothers, and I said to her, could you tell me about spring cleaning? Did you do any spring cleaning? And she said, well, Susan, think about it. First of all, we spent the winter in a longhouse. So we're talking about kind of an arched dwelling,
Mhm.
long, and each family had its own fire.
Mhm.
And there wasn't necessarily a smoke hole above every one of those fires.
Wow.
Right? There might have been only one smoke hole in the whole longhouse. So basically, you spent the winter inhaling a lot of particulate matter,
Mhm.
a lot of smoke. You also, by the spring, had consumed just about everything that you had put by
Yeah.
the
All your
fall before.
storages were gone,
Your
and
storage was pretty. So March and April were the months of starvation.
yeah.
The animals are giving birth, so they're hiding. They're really hard to find, and you don't have much left over. So the idea of spring
Interesting.
cleansing was that we're going to go out there and we're going to find whatever greens are out there, no matter what they do to our body.
Mhm.
Right? If those greens are a little purgative and they make us throw up, that's okay. If those greens are a little laxative and they make us have diarrhea, that's okay, because we need those greens. So the focus wasn't on the vomiting or the diarrhea. That was just kind of a tolerated side effect.
Mhm.
But it's interesting that the white people saw that as the goal and didn't see that these plants were being chosen because they were greens that could be eaten early in the spring, like poke leaves. And most people recognize that poke leaves are poisonous. And so most people will cook them in several changes of boiling water to
Right.
get rid of the stuff that gives you diarrhea or makes you throw up. But native people generally wouldn't. They would just tolerate those effects because it was an early spring green. So I began to understand why the white people got this idea about cleansing, and also because the religions that most white people, especially then, were involved in were religions which said a lot about being clean, and that being dirty was something that we really didn't want, and that somehow sin made us dirty and that we had to purge to get rid of this. Now, this is a very old idea. The heroic tradition is based on ideas that we can literally trace back historically for at least 4,000 years, maybe 5,000 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I always have this expression, which is if something has been around for that long, you have to pay attention to it because it survived millennials. And there is that aspect in Chinese medicine and herbal medicine, and now you're talking about this. And I have a colleague and friend, Maya Shetreat, Dr. Maya Shetreat. You might know her,
I do.
neurologist in New York. We're all very simpatico with our approach. And she wrote a book called The Dirt Cure, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I often, have cause to mention, no matter what class I'm teaching, that there's no nutrition available from raw food, and that nothing on this planet eats raw food. And then we pick a salad, and people look at me and go, cannot compute. You just told us there's no nutrition in raw food, and now you're having us pick a salad. What's going on here, Susan? I said,
What do
well,
they say?
you're not going to get any nutrition from the salad, and that's why I advise you to eat it last after you get your nutritious food. But you're going to get a lot of soil microorganisms because
Right.
we're not washing the salad. We're picking it, putting it in. I'm not saying that there's dirt on it. We're sophisticated people. We don't have to have gritty dirt in our salad. We know that soil microorganisms are on those unwashed greens. And it's thrilling to me. Usually within 4 or 5 days of putting some unwashed wild edible plant
Yeah.
into your diet, the whole gut microbiome changes.
Yeah.
And you begin to be less anxious, feel less stress, experience more joy, and for some people, for the first time, actually begin to hear from your body what it needs from you.
Isn't it interesting that it only takes 4 days? And it's been, years of neglect. And when you go to places like Whole Food, they have these pre-washed greens, and people say, well, I'm just going to buy this. First of all, they're in a plastic bag or box. For me, I don't even want like a ribbon around my food. I want to go first. I used to grow on my own, and even now I have I have arugula out there. It's wild, it's reseeded. I grow my own greens, and I go out and I pick and I eat. And there's nothing that competes with that. But the more you get away from like going to the farmer's market where it's just there, and then you go to a Safeway or something, and it's in plastic and it's been washed with some water that has Clorox in it to keep it, from deteriorating or something. Or you go to a certain chain salad bars where they wash the lettuce in this toxic thing so it lasts for 2 weeks.
They don't usually wash it in anything toxic. I've worked a lot in restaurants. My parents were restaurateurs. What we do first thing in the morning is we run a big sink full of cold water. We put ascorbic acid in it.
Okay.
Vitamin C, and then we throw all the lettuce and all the vegetables.
That was you, but that's not what Whole Food does. Yeah.
I suspect it is. It's the least expensive, easiest way to keep your greens fresh is to just dump them in a sink of ascorbic acid.
Okay, great.
And then you can make your salads 8 hours ahead, and they'll be fresh and fine.
Yeah.
So it's a restaurant trick, but we have big jars of ascorbic acid, and we just put a tablespoon in the big sink of water and dump your vegetables in
right.
There. It does. Of course, the water has chlorine in it. If you're running a restaurant, your water's chlorinated for sure. I have, of course, spring water at my house, but that's not allowed in a restaurant.
No, of course not.
Of course not. And it doesn't have to be a whole salad of wild food, or it doesn't have to be a whole salad of something that you grew. Arugula will grow in a pot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You could grow it really easily and just pick a couple of leaves and put it in with anything you're eating. If you're having eggs for breakfast, toss a couple of leaves, edible leaves that you grew or that you found wild, onto your eggs. Chop them up and put them on your eggs, and
delicious.
Get that good stuff for your microbiome, because we're finding more and more that the health of the microbiome is deeply connected to our mental health, not just our physical health, but our mental health. That the microbiome is what makes you happy or depressed.
Yeah, thank goodness for that they discovered that connection, right? It's not antidepressants anymore, which is just such a mixed bag, really.
Well, the antidepressants, of course, like most drugs, harm the microbiome.
Yes, they do.
So it's kind of, it's like what we're saying, we're trying to fix something, but in fixing it, we wind up messing up more stuff. I was horrified. I went to see the plastic surgeon because I still, 2 years later, have an unhealed wound. Now, I started off with a wound that was 3 inches deep, and it's only about 1/4 of an inch deep now. So we've done a tremendous amount.
Thank God for you, right?
Yeah, but what the plastic surgeon said that was the best way to proceed was to make 2 4-inch incisions, one on each one of my buttocks, smush the fat in my buttocks over to where the wound is to feel the wound is, and that would cure what was wrong with me. And I looked at him and I said, surgery to deal with the problem caused by surgery is not where I'm going.
I agree.
As a matter of fact,
the whole process sounds so absurd to me. I mean, so now you're going to have 2 other really bad issues, and then you're going to have trauma from squishing fat from the right to the left. It's like, and you won't be able to sit down. I'll take the 1/4 of an inch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If I'm going to have surgery with anesthesia, I'm having a chin job where we can all enjoy it. Nobody's looking at my butt. And everybody says, you would never do that. I said, that's about how likely it is that I'm going to let them do that to my butt. Not happening, gang. We're just going to age as gracefully as possible, along with that extra chin they give you when you turn 70 as a gift.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of life. I love that Ina Garten, who I love her. She's on the Food Network. She's known as the Barefoot. She was the Barefoot Contessa. She's lives on Long Island and does a lot of television about food. And she has, I mean, somebody in her state could easily have gone to plastic surgery, and she chose not to. And she said, this is who I am, that this, if you don't like it, you can not watch my programs, but I'm not doing this just because society thinks that women should. And so this brings us back to the beauty of botanical medicine and the soil microorganisms and the beauty of plant medicine, and how the approach of fixing with either a pill or a surgery, plastic surgery or otherwise. Sometimes surgery is life-saving and necessary. I'm not disputing that, but we're talking about.
I'm very glad they resected my cancer.
Yeah, right. So, you know, you need surgery. There are times when it's absolutely appropriate, but like doing a neck job or what Susan just talked about with her little wound situation is creating more problems.
Yeah.
It's the fixing issue, the approach that gets us trouble. And with breast cancer, when women come in, you know, there is surgery. They do remove the lump, or sometimes women choose to have their breasts removed, which is a very big decision. Sometimes it's the right decision. But then we need to unfix the fixing. We need to bring the body back into health through restorative measures. Unfix the fixing. It's my new.
Unfix the fixing. I like that, Carol. How do we unfix the fixing? Well, we don't unfix the fixing by cleansing.
Right.
That's what's really important for us to remember.
By supporting the liver.
Support the liver. Support the body. Trust the body. This is a place that I find that I'm very different than a lot of other people, and that I have an absolute trust in the body. And I think that you do too. I think that we have both seen a huge number of people who have struggled against things and got themselves like, Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby, firmer and firmer fixed to it. And people who have been able to graciously let go and trust, and miracles happen.
I think that's something that I help women with all the time. And I want to give an example. There was a woman who had a pretty intense case of breast cancer, and she was thinking that she should be able to go back to work. First it was 5 days, and then it was 4 days, and she had developed this horrible anxiety, and she was in therapy, and they wanted to give her antidepressants, and I listened to her, and in 5 minutes I said to her, you need to stop thinking that you should do, the anxiety is your body is giving you a message, and you're not paying attention. So when you don't pay attention, it's going to ramp up the volume and make you feel worse. So how does it feel in your body when I say to you, you can't work 4 days? You should be working at the most 3 days. That's your truth and reality. How does that feel? She went, I'm not anxious anymore. I said, this is not rocket science. This is paying attention to the clues. So to those of you who are out there having anxiety and stress, it's like, what is the clue that you're not paying attention to? That your ego mind is saying, oh no, it can't be this, or oh no, I don't want to do that. What new choice do you need to make to optimize your life and your health?
Beautifully said. Thank you for offering that support and that, right there with that woman. Hi, we're not fighting what's going on. We're listening to what's going on. Your body is speaking to you. When my daughter was little, she would come, I would be working because I was a single mom, and she'd come and she'd say, Susan, and I'd say, not now, I'm working. Right. And she'd circle around in 5 minutes. She'd go, Susan. I go, not now, I'm working. Right. And then she'd come back again. Susan. And I'd say, not now, I'm working. And then she'd have a tantrum. And I'd say, what's wrong with you? Why are you having a tantrum? Well, because I ignored her. Because when she asked me nicely, I said, go away. And I see how often we do this to our bodies.
To ourselves, to our bodies, to our lives.
Right. Our bodies, our lives say, hi, check it out. This is not working for you. And we say, be quiet, I'm working. Be quiet, I'm busy. So I know it's hard for all of us. Every woman has too much to do. There's no woman whose work is ever done. But can we put ourselves at least second? Maybe not first, but at least second.
I think that's a good, perspective. If you can't be first for whatever the issue is, which I respect, I often am not, I'm rarely first, but I have to be second or third sometimes. Or else,
But at least up there in the top 3.
Yeah, be in the top 3. I'm going to
Be
write
in
that
your
down.
own top 3, exactly. And the hit parade, your own hit parade.
Your own hit parade. So, Susan, I'm so sorry, but I have to go because I'm going for my own acupuncture treatment. So I have energy to take care of everybody else and take care of myself, and I need to get there or else I'm going to be late. But
We don't want you to be
I could
late,
hang
Sarah.
out with you in the Catskills for hours and we'd have a wonderful time. And I hope at some point that happens in reality.
I hope so too, Carol. I so enjoy our conversations. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Have a lovely afternoon. Blessings to everybody as usual. Hopefully Susan will bless us with another time.
Another time.
We love having
blessings, everybody. Herbal medicine, it's people's medicine. It's the medicine that grows right outside your door. Go find motherwort.
I'm going to buy some. Blessings. Thank you again.
Make sure it's made from the fresh plant, not the dried one.
No, of course not. I'm going to, no, the real thing, just like you told me.
All right.
Bye for now.